Hey guys, my guest tonight, Dr. Scott Taylor, researches shared death experiences. And boy, does he have a story to tell. See you in about 5 minutes. Grab your popcorn and snacks. Find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust. Turn out the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Good afternoon, everybody. How is everyone? Wintry afternoon. Cold afternoon. Welcome, everybody. My name is Charlotte. I'm going to be your host for the next hour, and this is the California Haunts radio show. The California Haunts is also a paranormal team. I own the paranormal team. We're 45 strong, up and down the state of California. That means we have somebody in almost every county. So if you have a paranormal need, get a hold of me, and we can get to you. Even though it might take an hour or two to get to you, we will find a way to get to you. The other thing we do too is we're not one of these groups that goes out just to find. I forgot to push my button. Jeez. Okay. We're not one of these groups that goes out just to find a ghost. We go out and we look at everything. We're looking at electrical issues and anything natural and anything man-made that could be also contributing to the issue. And if we can't find an answer that way, then we go in and start looking at the paranormal part of it. So we're there to help you full service. If you get a group that goes out that doesn't do that, don't take them in, okay? Anyway, we're 45 strong up and down the state, and we also have affiliates in Oregon, Washington, Nevada, and Hawaii. So if you have any issues out there, get a hold of us out there. All right? You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter at CalHaunts. You can find me on Instagram at GhostyGal, all lowercase. You can also find us on TikTok. I remember these things. TikTok, California Haunts, all lowercase. But mostly on Facebook. We're everywhere on Facebook. And if I forgot anywhere, except for YouTube, you can find us on YouTube as well. This is our YouTube channel and our Facebook channel. Anyway, if you like the show tonight, especially during the time you're listening to it, hey, Athena, how are you? Haven't seen you in a while. If you like the show, please share it with other people. And if you do like it and you haven't done so already, please please hit that like button and join up. I could say join up, become whatever it's called, become a member on Facebook, a follower. That's it. I knew the word was there. It's one of those days for me. And if you're watching from YouTube today, please be sure, if you do like the show and you want to follow us, please be sure to click on the little ghost in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. That will click out the little red thing that says join or subscribe. We've got over 40 or 400 some odd videos. Geez, my day is just not going well, is it? We've got over 450 videos sitting over there, and they're all different topics. And we actually had somebody that's an upcoming guest that we were talking about anxiety. I'm a journalist. I'm a photojournalist, so I like to change it up. So, yeah. So I'm sure if you go over there and check out our YouTube page, there'll be something that you like. And you can go there at youtube.com/ampersand California Haunts Radio. And you can just see everything's there. It's kind of overwhelming when you get over there. But I look forward to it. I love having subscribers, and you'll also get to know when new videos are coming out, like this one. Anyway, this gentleman, Dr. Scott Taylor, was with us a couple weeks ago. And I think I was having internet issues. I've since upgraded, and hopefully today goes a little smoother because we were having a really great discussion, but we kept glitching in and out, kind of like that Mario video game when Mario keeps falling off the screen. That's what was happening that night. We all kept falling off the screen. So hopefully today will be nice and clean, and so far it's been stable. I've had it since Sunday night, and the internet's been really stable, so hopefully it stays that way. Anyway, we're going to be talking about shared death experiences tonight and shared near-death experiences, which is kind of interesting. I think Scott can explain it a lot better than I can. But I know, I'm figuring it's kind of like a shared dream experience, like when you have a dream and maybe your husband or your sister has a similar dream. But this has to do with death. So I want to let him explain it. All right, so let's bring him in. Hello.
Charlotte, it's really good to see you.
It's good to see you not blinking off the screen. Yay.
That
was scary, man.
That was kind of scary. Well, it was perfect for us, California Haunts. And, and our last time together was, yes, scary or from another world or something.
I don't know where I kept going, but I kept going somewhere. So probably that other dimension.
Well, you do know that people who've had near-death experiences come back with some kinds of after effects. And one of them is that they are just terrors around electronics. So,
yeah, see?
most of most people who've had near-death experiences can't wear watches. They've got to have the special crystals next to their computer. They're grounded. I mean, they do all kinds of things to make sure that they're can exist compatibly with the technology that's out there today.
Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Tell everybody about you, sir.
Okay, glad to. I am a guide to the afterlife, and my principal business is the Expanded Awareness Institute. And from there, what we do is we offer courses and albums on that uses guided meditations to take people to the same places that near-death experiencers go to or shared death experiencers go to. And we do it without the physical trauma, which is a really good deal, by the way. Yeah, we do it using a special form of meditation, and it's really effective. And, it's just more fun than one person should have, to, kind of preview your own transition and learn how to navigate in the non-physical world. So that's what I do now. Before this, I had a 20-year career in retail. I had a 20-year career mentoring small businesses for the state of Minnesota. And for the last couple of years, I have been executive director of the Monroe Institute. I'm retired from that now. And that leaves me with time to talk to you, Charlotte.
Well, what got you started looking into these things?
I had a shared death experience. And do you want me to tell the story?
Absolutely.
All right.
That's what we're here for.
Well, and I'm partly Irish, so the whole story thing is important in our family. This is back in 1981, and I'm in love with a woman. Her name is Mary Frances Randall, and she and her son Nolan, who just turned 7, were coming back from a sailing day on Lake Washington in southern Minnesota, and on their drive back, they were involved in this horrific car accident, and Mary Fran was killed outright, and Nolan suffered a mortal head wound. And luckily, we live in southern Minnesota, and that's where we weren't that far from Rochester, which is where the Mayo Clinic is. Mm-hmm. So they were immediately both transported to Mayo, and they received just world-class care. But there was no saving Mary Fran, and they really took good care of Nolan in the 6 days between the accident and when he made his final transition. And that 6 days becomes important because Mary Fran was one of 9 kids, and because there was this time lapse, all of the siblings were able to converge on Rochester, along with uncles and aunts and friends and grandparents, and that's just Mary Fran's family. And then there's my family. So there were, I don't know, 40, 50 of us that were holding vigil for Nolan there. And because there were so many of us, what we decided to do, because the hospital room it's small, there's a bed and there's a bunch of monitors. And so we just divvied it up so that there were 2 of us in, and that were with Nolan the whole time that he was there. And as it turns out, my shift was on the morning of the 6th day. It was from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. in the morning, and I did it with Mary Fran's oldest sister, Janie. And the 2 of us, got there at 3 in the morning, and we had, a book of stories that Nolan really liked. And so we read him stories, and we talked about what was going on with his care and who the nurses were that were coming in. And in particular, we talked about how his this sounds so silly because it was very funny. His uncles had decided that this waiting room that we were all stuffed into was too small and it didn't have enough chairs, and so they went out at midnight and they raided the couches in the Mayo Clinic and took all of their cushions away and spread them out on the floor so people could get some comfortable rest. And so we were telling him these stories, which was really important because we had been counseled earlier in the week that even though Nolan was in a coma, one of the very last senses to go is the sense of hearing. Mm-hmm. And so if we could talk to him and tell him, what's going on, that he would feel engaged with us. And if it was, he knew that he wouldn't be all alone. And so that's what we did. Well, it gets to be about 4:45 in the morning, and Janny looks at her watch and she goes to the end of the bed and picks up the clipboard with his chart on it. And then she looks up at all of the monitors that are, surrounding the bed. Mm-hmm. And she holds out her hand to me and says, Scott, it's time we say goodbye. And so we pulled up a couple of chairs next to his head and we told him that he had been an incredibly brave boy and that he was really fighting hard to stay with us, and that we could see how hard he was fighting. Mm-hmm. And we just loved him for that tenaciousness, and there were so many of us that he should take comfort in the fact that we were all there and surrounding him and giving him all of our love. But if his mother should come to pick him up, remembering that she died 6 days ago, mm-hmm. That if Mary France should come and to pick him up, that would be the right thing to do, would be for him to go with his mother, and that we would miss him, but that would be that the two of them should be together. So we ended it just by sharing our affection, and now it's 5:00 and the next shift is coming in, and we left and tried to find a spot on one of the cushions on the floor. Well, it wasn't more than 45 minutes later that the nurse on the floor came up and said, he's slipping and it's going relatively quickly, that everybody should go in and be with him in his room when he makes his final transition. So we did. We all filed into this little hospital room, and as it just turns out, I'm one of the very last people to enter in the room. And, Charlotte, it's already 4 or 5 deep around the bed. And I didn't see much sense in just standing there. So, I went over and I sat on the windowsill next to Mary Fran's youngest brother, Willie. And I don't know. Have you been with somebody who's made their transition?
Yes.
So at least in Nolan's case, it was very gentle. Mm-hmm. And mostly what we did was we just waited and we would, watch that heart monitor that was in the room, and it slowed and slowed and slowed. And finally it just, did that flatline thing with that really ominous tone that it makes when it does that. And when Nolan flatlined, what I experienced was Mary Fran coming across the veil and scooping her son out of his physical body. And that the two of them had this exquisite reunion, as you could only imagine, between a mother and son in this situation. And for some reason, I got to experience what they were feeling. And it really surprised me. It kind of set me back a little bit. And then, even more to my surprise with it, was that after the two of them had their reunion, they turned to me, came over and embraced me, and then the three of us left and went to the light.
Wow.
And what I experienced entering into the light, Charlotte, was just beyond words. It was joy, it was ecstasy, it was requited longing, it was compassion, all of those emotions. And then also I felt like I was connected to everything that was around me. Like I was me, I got that, but I was also connected to everything else that was around. That I was one with the universe. So what happened then was that Mary Fran and Nolan and I had a chance to be together, and that we had a chance to properly say our goodbyes and declare, how much love and affection that we had for each other. And then we just had a chance to hang out. We got a chance to be together, the three of us. And then, this just sounds so odd, but at some point it just felt complete. Like we had said all we needed to say, and we'd expressed what we needed to express. And it was like, we're done now. And I mean, nobody said that. It felt like that. And then Mary Fran and Nolan turned and went further into the light. And then I came back to my physical body, which was sitting on the windowsill, next to Willie over here. And so that's part A of the story. I thought maybe I should break right here, see if you got any questions for me.
When you left your body, was there any sort of sensation or anything?
Okay, so we're going to jump right into part B, because
there you go.
There we go. So thank you for that segue.
Okay.
So what happened was, I was there in the light with Mary Fran and Nolan, and I was also in my physical body at the same time. So I didn't have a word for it then. Now I do. It's called bilocation. I was fully present with Mary Fran and Nolan in the light, and I was fully present sitting there on the windowsill next to Willie. And so there were two of me operating independently. And I know this, Charlotte, because I'm sitting there on this windowsill, and it is like the love of the universe is trying to burst out of my physical body. And as a result, my face was an expression of joy, of ecstasy, of all things wonderful. And it was entirely inappropriate for the room, because just moments before, Nolan had made his transition. And just 6 days before, Mary Fran had made her transition. And the room, I mean, all these people were actively grieving. And, they're hugging each other, they're crying on each other's shoulders. and they're trying to give each other as much comfort as possible. And I'm not in that place.
Mhm.
I'm with the love of the universe, and my face is just like, and if anybody had looked at me, they would have wondered what was going on. And I knew I was inappropriate, and I couldn't stop it because just it's just so wonderful. So I did the only thing I could think of, which was to cover my face with my hands.
Mhm.
And I remained in that pose until, both halves of me came back and were reunited. I could regain my composure, and then I could put my hands down and join the others, and, giving what comfort I could, and receiving what comfort I could. So the question was a good one. How did it feel when I left my physical body? Well, I did and I didn't. I was in two places. Um, and for the part of me that was in the light with Mary Fran and Nolan, um, it felt like I had just stepped into another dimension. I didn't have this sense of, like a tunnel and all that kind of stuff that you
Mhm.
read about. This
Mhm.
was just me experiencing a new dimension in a way that I had never experienced it before. I mean, I didn't go anywhere other than I had shifted into another place with Mary Fran and Nolan. And was that in the same room? Was it the same planet? I have no idea. You know,
Mhm.
I'm just I'm just in another place with the two of them.
It's interesting when you say that because I had a friend who was psychic and she would see ghosts on her property all the time. And she told me that she saw this one particular woman walk across her lawn and she didn't really see a door, but it was weird, she said, because it looked like she was opening a door. And she took 2 steps up and she could see her clearly walk in, like she was going into another dimension.
Yep. Hmm. Yeah, we had a friend of ours who was watching television one night, and he looks up and he sees these people just walking through the end of his room.
Mhm.
Like, same sort of thing. Like, they opened up a door, they just walked through, opened up another door, and they disappeared. And, for the life of him, it was like, well, thanks for coming, folks. But there was no contact or anything there. He just
Mhm.
saw him, and
Yeah.
clear as day. Oh, yeah,
So that might be that dimension you're talking about. And Sylvia Brown's the one that said that the other side is no more than 3 or 4 feet away from us at all times. So who
at all
knows?
times, and I'd
Yeah, at all
I'd
times.
say it's less than that. Um, my experience of it is that it's a shift in vibration.
Okay.
Like, we're here in the physical and we're vibrating at one level,
Mhm.
and because of what Mary Fran and Nolan did, they shifted my vibratory level up so that I could be with them in that other dimension where they were. And so we didn't we also didn't have a word for it, but what I had was a shared death experience.
Mhm.
That's a term that was coined by Raymond Moody, the same guy who coined the term near death experience.
Mhm.
And for 20 years it was called a near death like experience until he rethought it, and he had enough exposure to people who'd had it that he renamed it and called it a shared death experience. And um, it's very similar to a near death experience, but it has a couple of different components that are different.
Now my question is, what did they? I mean, when you see the movies and you see people on the other side, you kind of see them in a glistening white hue, or in a foggy kind of white hue. What did they look like? I mean, did they look like you and me, or was it different, so to say?
Well, I've talked to a bunch of people who've had shared death experiences,
Mhm.
and it's all over the map.
Okay.
In my case, they were energy, and as close as I can say is that I recognize their energetic signature, and I just knew who they were, and no, they didn't appear to me like, in corporeal form where I could go, oh, yeah, Nolan, you need to comb your hair. It wasn't like that. They were energy beings that I absolutely know that it was the two of them. And then we communicated. So I knew from that too. Um, but I've talked to folks where they came back and they looked exactly like they did in the physical world. Sometimes they're even corporeal, meaning you can touch. And my old office mate, when I was mentoring businesses for the state of Minnesota, his wife came back after she'd been gone about 6 months, and the two of them embraced each other, and he felt her. It was real stuff, and and he could feel her hugging him, and they were able to talk to each other. And when they finished, she just dissolved in his arms. So it's all over the board. I kind of have this feeling that it's the experience that we get is what we're able to understand.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, so it's designed for us to, um, maybe for whatever reason, I was accepting of the fact that they could be energy bodies. I mean, I never doubted it for a second. I mean, that's Mary Fran and Nolan.
Right.
And what we also know about shared death experiences is that there needs to be a couple things present. One is that there needs to be a heart connection between the two individuals. So, um, so in order for me to accompany them on Nolan's transition, there needed to be a heart connection. Well, there certainly was a heart connection with Mary Fran and I, and with Nolan, um, that was easy because he actually never knew who his biological father was. Um, the biological father had disavowed any knowledge of his actions and chose not to be a part of their family or support them, or, he just disappeared. So, um, Mary Fran just didn't tell him. It wasn't important. And so when I came into the picture and we started being, a couple and then a threesome, as I started to get to know Nolan, um, um, he was really accepting of the fact that there could be a man in his life that he liked. And frankly, he was 6, just turned 7. And, every other kid in first grade has a dad.
Right.
And he didn't have one. And so we bonded relatively quickly. And so that's required, that there is a heart connection between the two people. The second thing that's required for a shared death experience is that, the one making the transition, and then the experiencer, in that case, that's me. So the experiencer needs to be in a receptive state. That can mean all kinds of things, but for me, I was just sitting there on a windowsill, got nothing to do except watch the heart monitor. And you kind of, yeah, I was in a receptive state, maybe in a hypnotic state. I don't know. It's just,
Yeah, watching it. Yeah.
you're just sitting there watching the monitor. There's nothing going on. And the last thing that seems to be really the pivotal thing is that the one making the transition, in this case, it was Nolan, um, invites the person in the physical to come with them. So in my case, I probably had 2 invitations, one from Mary Fran and Nolan. So I got like double invited. That's cool. And um, and that invitation takes the form of changing my vibratory level. And so they reach back into the physical, and that process, which I have no idea what the mechanics of it are, but the process of them, like it's almost like they build a bridge of loving energy between the two, and then that bridge ups my energy level to match where they're at, and poof. So, and it's probably both my physical and my non-physical body, but for certain it's my non-physical body. So that's the important thing, is that they make the invitation back. It's really hard for us on this side to be able to go, oh, I'm going to raise my vibratory level up to match my departing loved one. Well, you have to be trained at it. You got to do it on command. And which vibratory level you're going to pick? I mean, there's a zillion of them out there. So the invite back is the key thing for a shared death experience.
I would think with that invite too, because like you say, you're sitting there staring at the monitor. There's nothing else going through your head except you're watching the monitor. And then when you see him and he invites you over, your mind automatically switches to, oh my gosh, yes, I'm so glad to see you, blah, 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 blah. So you're really, you're ready to be accepting of that. So you can go over.
Yeah. And it felt like it was the most natural thing in the world. There wasn't, I'm glad you said it the way you did. Because there wasn't any of this, oh my gosh, it's Nolan, he's come back, there's Mary Fran. Yeah, surprise. It was like I was with them again. It just seemed so easy. It wasn't hard. It was, it was heartfelt. It was like, boom, there you are. In fact, you'll love this. So I was telling you the story about my office mate, and he had he was walking down the hall, and he saw his wife standing at the other end of the hall, and the two of them came together and they hugged each other in the hall, and he says to her, Barb, I've had this terrible dream that you had died, and I'm just so glad to see you again. So it felt very natural. And of course, she had to respond with, I did die. And I saw that you were having a hard time, and they saw that you were having a hard time. And they sent me back here to tell you that you're going to be okay. I am really okay. So don't worry about it. Like, oh, cool. What an awesome story.
Oh yeah. Was there any sensation at all when your body's rejoined, or when your consciousness rejoined?
I would tell you that it's like it clicked back into place again. It the closest I can explain it, it's like you have a physical body and a non-physical body. And then for the brief amount of time, we'll use an electrical term, it's like they're out of phase with each other. They're just one out of phase. And so, here you are in the same spot, but you're experiencing something in a different dimension because you're vibrating at a different level. And then when that quits, it's like click, you come back into place again. And it wasn't difficult. I've had people tell me that, oh my God, how horrible it was because they had this expanded body and they had to be squished, into the physical body again. And the physical body was cold and it's cramped. And in the case of near-death experiencers, many of the times there's something really wrong with that physical body. It's been in an accident, it's drowned, it's got hit by lightning or something. And so when it clicks into place again, there's a lot of pain that they're now aware of that they weren't aware of when they were not aligned again.
Mm-hmm.
So I highly recommend not doing the whole physical trauma thing till your body dies to have this experience. Really do it through meditation. It's a lot more fun.
So after this happened, did you start doing research into it? Because it would have been something that totally took you off guard.
Yeah. That's a really great question because one of the things we know about near-death experiencers is that they become intensely curious afterwards, and that's what happened to me. And this sounds a lot more logical than it was at the time, but I knew that if I had been in that space once, that I could go back to that space again. If I could be with Mary Fran and Nolan in whatever dimension that was once, that I should be able to figure out what it is to do to make that happen again. And the best thing I could come up with was, why don't I go to these ancient sacred sites? Maybe there's still some magic juju that will, help propel me into, the next dimension, because there's clearly something has happened in these sites. So, I went to see Stonehenge and Machu Picchu and the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx and the Oracle of Delphi and so, and more cathedrals than I could shake a stick at. Okay, just crickets, nothing. Nothing happened. I had great vacations. I got to see some wonderful country. But nothing. I was propelled nowhere. All right. So, then I said, well, maybe it takes more active nature.
Mm-hmm.
So I started practicing some meditation. I started out with TM. And, I went and I studied with the shamans in both North America and South America. That was kind of fun. The Emoto religion over in Japan. And I got some glimpses, but it really didn't happen for me until I found the Monroe Institute. And the Monroe Institute, for those of you who are listening who haven't know or don't know anything about it, Bob Monroe, back in 1971, wrote a book called Journeys Out of the Body. He was the first person to write a book about astral travel, leaving your physical body, coming back again. And it was this huge, huge phenomenon. It was a bestseller. People from all over the world were going, that's what happened to me, and all of a sudden they got validation. And they said, yes, I'm not weird. I am not going crazy. I'm glad it's happened to somebody else. And a bunch of people said they want to do it too.
Mm-hmm.
So what he did was to look around for a way to help put people into a very specific meditative state that would allow people to leave their bodies more easily and learn how to do that OBE experience on command at will. And he stumbled across a very old technology. It was actually discovered back in the 1880s, called binaural beats. And binaural beats works. It's got a very simple premise. So you wear headphones and you put one tone into one ear, say 100 hertz, and you put another tone into the other ear, say 104 hertz. And what the brain tries to do is to equalize those two tones. And it can't, because it's inherent. They're inherently, two different sounds. And so what the brain does is it sets up a third tone that it hears all by itself inside their head. And that tone is the difference between the two. So using the scenario I just talked about, you have 100 and 104, what the brain does is it sets up and it starts to hear a third tone, which is 4 hertz. Now, if that would be true, if I was doing that right now, I would go, because that's the vibration of deep sleep. And so by adjusting the difference, you can adjust what the brain begins to hear. And eventually, after a little bit of time, it starts to vibrate. Both halves start to work together as one unit instead of 2 units, and they vibrate at that third tone. So what Bob Monroe did, his genius was that he started to layer them. And he said, what I need to do is I need to get people to relax their bodies so they forget about their bodies. But they can't be asleep because, well, what's the point of that? We aren't doing this consciously anymore. So he layered them. And he said, okay, I'm going to have that 4 hertz differential there. So that's deep sleep. And then I'm going to put in 12 hertz. So that's where we are when our mind is bright, awake, and clear. And now all of a sudden, you enter into a meditative state where your mind is bright, awake, and clear, and your body is asleep. And that's the state that Bob used to jump off when he would go do all of his out-of-body adventures. At the Monroe Institute, we call that mind awake, body asleep. Pretty straightforward there, huh? And it works fabulously well. And then over time, he said, well, what if I, made it a little bigger, a little smaller? What if I added extra ones? And what he discovered was that there's all these vibratory states out there, and each one of them has certain characteristics specific to that vibratory state. And you can go and explore that. So for near-death experiencers, there's a vibratory state when you meet your guide or when you go down the tunnel. And especially if that reunion that happens with your departed loved ones, there's a being of light. He's at it. It is at a vibratory state, as is the life review. And that area of life between lives, near-death experience. This is really interesting. Near-death experiencers and Bob Monroe called it the same thing. They call it the park.
Wow.
And it's, it exists at a particular set of frequencies. And so the cool thing about binaural beats is that you can learn them. So you wear the headphones a couple, 3, 4 times, and then you go, oh yeah, I remember what that feels like. And you don't need the headphones anymore. You can throw them away. So the brain is really good at learning these kinds of tools that we can use to navigate the non-physical universe. And so anyway, I'm sorry. This is a long
No, that's good. That's
answer to your question.
It's good to know this stuff. No, it's good to know this stuff and how it's done. So by utilizing this stuff, were you able to go back?
Yes.
And how did that go?
Well, it was lovely, of course. I had I went to the first course at the Monroe Institute is called Gateway. And during the Gateway course, I had an experience meeting Mary Fran. And then I went back to Monroe, and they have a second course that's called Guidelines, which is contacting your guides. And there I solidified my relationship with her. I, figured out how the two of us could communicate, and we'd have a place to be. And Nolan and I had, friends and relatives. So I was able to really connect with departed loved ones. And it's interesting though, because Mary Fran was real active with me at the beginning. And once I figured out how to make that transition, we had lots of conversations. And then it was like, I got stuff to do.
Mhm.
Off she goes. And then I wouldn't hear from her for a long time. And then ta-da, she comes back. So it was like these cycles, it was like, oh, you can, and so Nolan, on the other hand, has always been with me. Once we made contact, I mean, Nolan is right there. I mean, I can feel him now, and he's always around and providing me good advice, and he's very funny. And one of the things that, so how it works for me anyway, is that I set up this place in my mind. For us, it's a park bench that looks like those park benches in Central Park. They got wood slats, and on the end there's kind of a scrolly ironwork.
Sure.
Anyway, so it's in a park. It's on this gravel path, this park bench, and all I have to do is picture that park bench and me sitting on the park bench, and he shows up. That's kind of like our invitation. I'm going, and we then have conversations. And it's been long enough. I mean, it's over 40 years now since Nolan made his transition. And depending upon what it is that he wants to talk about, he'll show up as being 7 or 20 or 35 or a petulant teenager. I mean, time over there is doesn't work like it does here. And so it changes, as does our conversation. So we have it's ever evolving.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the age thing, because I remember after my mother died, she would come back. I wouldn't have your experiences, but I would see her like sitting on my couch, and every time she came back, she got younger. I watched her de-age, so whatever was going on over there, she was going back to a time that she wanted to look good, and all that. So I was curious about, how you saw Nolan. Were you able to see him as an adult?
Yeah. So that's interesting. You should say that, because I don't remember ever seeing Nolan older than his Earth years. That's really interesting. So, like right now, if I were to meet Nolan on the park bench and he shows up as an 83-year-old man,
Yeah.
that just hasn't happened yet.
Mm-hmm.
He's, he'd be 46 now or something. And, he's never older than that. He's a lot of things in between, but
Mm-hmm.
I never thought about that till you just said that. Huh.
Now my question is, the obviously the Monroe Center, did they have a lot of people there that were trying to do this?
Trying to learn how to do out of body stuff.
Yes.
Oh yeah, about 1,000 a year. Wow. would come and learn these techniques and other techniques too. Because what Bob Monroe started off by trying to teach people how to do out of body experiences, but this gateway course that he developed is so much more than that. It's like the out of body is the hook. It's like, come on in, we'll teach you how to do that. And then when you get there, and he teaches you how to enter into and hold the states of expanded awareness, and it gives you all these tools for how to navigate in that space and how to communicate in that space. That, I mean, after my gateway, I was like, well, if you want to do the out of body stuff, that's just fine. But that wound up not being what was important to me. What was important was I was able to enter into that expanded state of awareness where Mary Fran and Nolan were, and be able to communicate in that space and go back there whenever I wanted to. So, yeah, people wind up coming and learning about all kinds of things. There's I think 35 different courses now about different aspects of the exploring the non-physical universe. So yeah, we have discovered a ton more since he did his early work, and as it should be.
Mm-hmm. It's absolutely fascinating to me that people can do that. I mean, I've done meditation. I teach meditation courses, basic meditation courses, where I can steer people to their guardians, in the
Yep.
book of answers and all that stuff. But I've never steered anybody to see people that have passed away. So I think this is all fascinating.
Well, and they're well, at least in my case, I have some very funny dead relatives. So whenever I go, it's just lovely.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Ann and I lost a child due to a miscarriage,
Mm-hmm.
and she's there, and have had a chance to. Um, her name was Abigail,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, had a chance to connect with her, and boy, does that make a parent feel better,
Mm-hmm.
knowing what the place was. And she's really cute. Looks just like her mom.
That's awesome. So can anybody do this?
Yep. Anybody can do it. Um, that's a lovely thing about binaural beats,
Mm-hmm.
is that it's 100% effective. All right. I should probably make that 99.9 or something just for, I am not selling their
Mm-hmm.
product. So anyway, let's just put this way. It's very effective. And, um, and one of the things, the reason is because it's, um, you're hearing,
Mm-hmm.
and so the body just knows what to do. You don't have to do anything. And in fact, it's counterproductive. So it's like just relaxing into the tones. Um, yeah, when it doesn't work, it's usually because somebody has a damaged nerve in their ear.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had people who are deaf do really well, because the nerve was still good. It was the ear, the cochlea was damaged, but the nerve leading to the brain, that was still in great shape. So you can pick up the vibration through the mastoid bones,
Mm-hmm.
and not just the same thing. You just wear headphones. Um, yes, and so it's very, very effective. And all right, so what makes this more of a challenge, though, I'm going to put a caveat on what I just said,
Mm-hmm.
was that when we're in the non-physical world, we have 7 senses.
Okay.
Here on the physical earth we have 5. and so when you're in the non-physical world, you can get information, or you can perceive energy. And of course, the easy way, because this is what you see in the movies, is that it's visual.
Right.
Well, it may not be visual. You may feel it in your body, so it's kinesthetic. I have a guide that shows up for me, and when she does, I get the scent of jasmine. So I smell her presence. I had a woman who, um, when she was going through her gateway experience, um, she knew when her mom showed up because she could taste gin, and that her mother was an alcoholic, and that was her favorite drink. And so you can taste information. And which ones am I leaving out? Hearing, feeling, touch. Anyway, um, and so it's a bit of a challenge as a facilitator
Mm-hmm.
to help people to broaden their sense of how information may come. And when you're in the non-physical universe, um, there's a thing called synesthesia, which is, you have your senses are mixed. So you might smell a color, or you might taste a sound, So it's now perceived differently than just the one sense alone. And so you got to kind of be aware of that too.
Mm-hmm.
And then my favorite, and it takes the longest to learn, is intuition, gestalt. Well, all of a sudden you're just in this meditative state and you know something. You just know something. And there's no, nothing leading up to it. There wasn't anything. There's no story. There's no context. Boom. You just know. And why that's difficult is that it takes a while to trust it. A, to identify that's what's happening, and then B, to learn how to trust it. And then once you learn to trust it, then that's great, because now you can start to use it.
Mm-hmm.
And you just know that you're supposed to buy that book, or you're supposed to take a left at this corner, or you need to talk to that person. Boom, boom, boom. And all this information can come through just knowing you're supposed to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody, they'll often say, well, how did you know to do what you did? And the best you can come up with, it was from, like, policemen will always talk about, well, my gut told me what to do, or my intuition told me, or I just had this feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get to that stage, boy, that's when the fun starts to happen.
Absolutely. I was just thinking about the sight and smell thing that you were talking about. When my mother passed away, I knew she didn't want to be taken to the coroner's office dirty, so I gave her a bath. I gave her a bath in a certain scented soap. So going back to what you were talking about, when my mother comes to visit me, I can tell because I smell that soap.
You smell the soap.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Isn't that fun?
Oh
You
yeah.
smell. Hey, Mom. Nice to have you here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So do you work with other people that have had similar experiences, or because you know so much about this?
Well, yes. So
Okay.
from the near-death side, I did my doctoral research on near-death experiences, and have been actively involved with the International Association for Near-Death Studies for 25, 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm their MC at their international conferences. So I get to meet people, I get to talk to people. My favorite thing to do at the conferences, everybody, has got those big name tags, Scott,
Right.
but there's a little sticker on that you can get that says that means I've had an experience and I'd love to tell you the story.
Mm-hmm.
And you see somebody walking down the hall and you go, you got a few minutes? I'd like to hear your story. And yeah, just involved in that whole community. And it's it's another one of those. It's like, go to a conference that's all about near death, and
Mm-hmm.
it's one of the most fun things that you'll do. These people are a hoot and a half. They're just, oh, well, partly it's because once they've had their near death experience, one of the things they begin to realize is that we have all of these imposed rules that come from our culture, and they can just see right through that and go, you know what, I'm not going to do that rule.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be more of who I am, and I'm going to live the life that is consistent with what I learned in my near death experience. And that just makes for some terrific people that you get a chance to know. And I started off answering a question. I went down a rabbit hole. Oh, well.
I
Do you
can
remember
imagine.
what you asked me?
Just if you talk to and we're in kind of
Oh, yes.
make notes and all that, yeah.
So yes, from the academic side, and then been involved in the near death world and the shared death experience world for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the flip side is all this work. I was a facilitator for the Monroe Institute for 35 years, and their executive director for 2. And so I spent a lot of time helping people to enter into and hold these expanded states of awareness. And the trick for me was, how can we alter those tones so that we can put you in the right vibratory state so that it's easy for you to experience the tunnel, or to talk with your dead relatives at the reunion, or to merge with this being of light, which is incredible. And so, yeah, it took a while, and it takes a while to write a script that is, when you're doing a guided meditation, you have people in these very expanded, open states. And so your directions have to be really clear and precise. And so folks don't misinterpret or get lost, or have different interpretations of the words that you're using. It winds up being a really interesting journalistic feat to actually write a guided meditation that does what you want it to do.
Mm-hmm.
And but you do it for a while, and there's kind of you get the hang of how to say things.
Mm-hmm.
And and frankly, you have to be really respectful, because folks they're wide open, and
Right.
you want to bring them back gently and close down those doors of communication if that's what you want, or
Mm-hmm.
learn to open. So anyway, so both from the near death side and from the exploring the non-physical universe side, yeah, I've had quite a trip these last 40 years.
Fantastic. Scott, this hour blew by.
Oh my gosh, are we done?
Yeah, I
Woo!
learned so much from you. Oh my gosh. This was
So,
fantastic.
Charlotte, this has been awesome. Thank you. Obviously, I had a really good time because I didn't know what time it was.
Well, thank you for coming on, and we'd love to have you on again at some point. How's that sound?
That sounds awesome. Can I do a commercial?
Absolutely. Go for it.
We, at the beginning, I told you that we had retreats and workshops and albums. They're all available at neardeathmeditations.com. Neardeathmeditations.com. And if you're interested in podcasts that feature researchers or experiencers, go to The Afterlife Files on YouTube. And we've got a bunch of episodes up. They're just great. So thank you for letting me do that.
No problem. And thank you for coming on. And thank you for being so patient after the last show. My God. But yeah, I would love to have you on again in the future if that's okay. And we can talk more about this.
I love it. And congratulations on the investment in your new internet service. It's working great. Yes.
Works great. All right, sir. Well, you have a good rest of the week then. All right?
I will.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. All right. I learned so much. Athena, I have an answer to your question. In fact, this is interesting when you talk about having that. I'm reading this now. Slender cord. When I was first started doing this, and I was having what I want to call paranormal issues, I started to read up on Sylvia Browne a lot. And one of the things Sylvia Browne talks about, just like we talked about with Scott, I talked about with Scott, with having the like 3 feet to the other side. She talks about a slender cord that leads from all of us, that attaches to the other side. So there is a slender cord. So you might want to check out Sylvia Browne. Anyway, that was a great show. I enjoyed it. At least we got through it without getting bumped off the air every 5 seconds. Tomorrow we're shifting gears. We'll be back at 6:30 p.m. Pacific, our usual time. I'm a nut for I'm a nut, right? We're all a nut. I love the Guinness Book of World Records. I love reading up on facts. I'm a facts person. I'm one of these people that I find these stories of frog, weird facts too, of frogs dropping out of the sky. Just odd things like that. The gentleman who's on tomorrow, Charles Reichblum, I hope I said his name right, has compiled several books on facts. And there's well-known facts, and there's little-known facts, and there's weird facts. So he's going to be on to talk about some of those. Say it. Shall we say it together? Facts. All right. So it's going to be interesting to see what he has to say because there's some really cool stories out there that you may not be aware of, I may not be aware of, or there's stuff that we are aware of that there's just more to it. So we're going to find out tomorrow, and that's with Charles Reichblum tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. Pacific here, right here on our channel. Okay. Anyway, if you guys like the show, share it with 5 people. If you hated the show, share it with 5 of your enemies. I'd rather get our name out there no matter what. So just start shoving our name out there, people. If there's someone in the house right now that's listening, and you want to share it with them, bring them in the room right now before we get off the air. Here's how you do it. So look us up on Facebook. There's several California Haunts pages over there, including California Haunts Goes to Events, where a lot of our live events broadcast. And go ahead and like the show or like the page and become a follower. Or you can head on over to TikTok, where we do a lot of stuff. And I know TikTok's kind of scary for people, but it's not that. It's not scary as you think it is. Anyway, you can find us again at California Haunts. It's all lowercase. Like and follow over there as well. There's a lot of videos over there that you might be interested in. Also, our YouTube page, okay? youtube.com/at California Haunts Radio. That'll get you directly to our YouTube page instead of having to search in Monkey Duck. And you can check out all our videos there because we have a lot going on. Plus, our upcoming stuff is always over there. Okay? So anyway, I want to thank you all for coming today. I know it was earlier than our usual time, but this guy's fascinating to listen to. And hopefully tomorrow you'll like what we have to offer as well. All right? I want to thank you, Athena and Teresa. Thank you. And everybody that was listening tonight and the people that are going to be listening to the podcast, I want to thank all of you as well. And I haven't done this in a while, but I'm going to go ahead and do it today. It's the holidays and stuff, and the end of the month's coming. I have to pay bills just like everybody else to keep the show on the air. So if you feel it in your heart to help me out a little bit, that would be great. It's at paypal.me/California Haunts. Or if you're uncomfortable with PayPal, you can do that at Venmo. Just type in California Haunts. It's like anything else. Internet, got to pay that bill, upgraded. And got to pay for mics, things that break, computers that break and stuff. And so it all comes out of my pocket. California Haunts does not take money to do any of their investigations. We do it because we want to help people. But it does help every once in a while to get a donation. So if you guys can find it in your heart, that would be great. I would appreciate it. All right. Well, I'm going to sign off now. And he did really well as far as his website. But I'm going to go ahead and show that again for you guys so you guys know it. And here we go. So his websites are the Afterlife Files, which is his podcast. So you guys can write that down. That's the Afterlife Files. That's where you'll find him on YouTube. And neardeathmeditations.com is his website. Okay, and we'll repeat that. neardeathmeditations.com. All right, guys and gals, I'll see you tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. Pacific. Have a good evening.